Things Podcast. Hey, Phantomaniacs, welcome to the newest episode of the Needless Things Podcast, where we talk about toys, movies, music, and all manner of pop culture dorkery. I am your host, Dave, and I am taking a brief break from our Independence Day festivities to record the intro for this episode, which was recorded last night. I had a couple of options for what this week's episode was going to be, and it was kind of a last-minute thing after seeing Spider-Man Far From Home yesterday. I had to talk about it. I hadn't really thought I would have the time to do a review episode, what with just coming off a vacation, back onto nights at work, and blah, 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 whatever else. But after seeing it, I really wanted to discuss it. And fortunately for me, our pal Chad J. Shonk was available, had seen the movie, and we ended up talking at about 1 in the morning. Just having a truly organic post-movie conversation about Spider-Man Far From Home, which is what today's episode is. It's that conversation. We try and keep it real, for lack of a better term, on Needless Things. I often don't have a ton of notes. Sometimes little things scribbled down that I want to be sure and remember. But I want everything to be as much like a natural conversation as it possibly can be. But this one is legit real deal. We were messaging on Facebook, and then I said, you know what? Can you get on Skype right now? And it worked out, and we did it, and so now we have an episode. So I'm just taking a quick break here. There will not be much to this intro because it's Independence Day. I'm hanging out with the family. I just grilled for the first time in my life, and I really enjoyed it, aside from the fact that it's 98 degrees outside here in Georgia. We had plans for pool stuff and slip and slide stuff. We bought a cheap little crap pool that we were just kind of play around in and let the dogs get in or whatever, and it just did not work out because we live halfway up a hill, basically. And the slip and slide, we just decided we'd hang on to that for another day. And very soon now, it is going to be fireworks time. So that I've got to get back upstairs, you guys. But real quick, I just want to say, please, if you are in the Atlanta area, if you are going to the Atlanta Comic Con, which is not this weekend, but next weekend, July the 12th, 13th, and 14th, please come and see Needless Things Presents The Summer of the Bat. We are doing a panel at Atlanta Comic-Con, a completely new venue for Needless Things, so I'm very excited about this. Our panel is about everything surrounding the release of Tim Burton's 1989 Batman. Obviously, we'll touch on the film a little bit because you can't not talk about that, but we are going to be focusing on the merchandising, the advertising, the marketing, just the phenomenon that surrounded the release of that movie. I'm very excited about the panel. I'm very excited about our friends Ryan Cadaver, Nicole Gould, and believe it or not, Mr. Chad J. Shonk is flying in from California for this panel. It's pretty crazy. It's going to be a good time. I've got prizes. I have actual memorabilia from 1989 that I'm going to be giving away at this panel. You can go to Facebook right now, look up Needless Things Presents Summer of the Bat. If you're part of the Needless Things Podcast Facebook group, which you should be, it is there in the Facebook group. You can RSVP, let us know you're coming. Let Atlanta Comic-Con know that you're excited about seeing Needless Things at Atlanta Comic-Con. This is, again, a completely new venue for us, and I'm super stoked about it. So there you go. That's what's going on now. I don't really have anything else to report other than the fact that I did a pretty good job grilling, a good enough job that I feel like a couple months from now I'll be really good at grilling, maybe, and might even want to invest in a grill that's a little nicer than the $40 dealie we bought from Walmart, because I wasn't going to spend a whole lot of money on it if I hated it and sucked at it. So I figured we'd start with a cheap little grill and see how it went, and it went pretty darn well. I don't recommend Bubba Burgers, though. That was a weak choice and made purely out of wanting to keep things as simple as possible for my first grill outing. So there you go. I hope everybody had a wonderful Independence Day. I hope you have a wonderful weekend planned. I do not. I will be at work nights, which is the worst ever, and I'm dreading it, which is why I'm going to wrap this thing up right now and get back upstairs and blow some stuff up with my wife and my son and have as much fun as I possibly can before I have to go back to hell and have my soul sucked out of my ass for 36 hours over the next 3 days. So I hope you guys enjoy Spider-Man Far From Home, or enjoyed Spider-Man Far From Home, and you will enjoy me and Chad just sitting around and having a chat about it. We're not here to talk about Batman, Chad.
No, we could be, but yes. No, that's true. We're here. One of my other favorite superheroes, not named Buffy.
Well, and that's as far as Marvel goes, we mentioned the MCU, but they're not my guys. Like, the MCU are my guys, but the Avengers are not my guys. My guys in Marvel were X-Men and Spider-Man.
Me too.
Those were my people. They were the weirdos, the outcasts. They were the ones I related to. And when I started buying comics when I was very, very young, those were the ones I was buying.
The first Marvel comic I ever bought was Wolverine #1 of the ongoing Chris Claremont series.
Yes.
That the entire issue was just him massacring an island full of people. That's all that first issue was, and I was like, I can keep reading this.
So, Spider-Man is our guy. We love Spider-Man.
I love Spider-Man.
And it's out there on Needless Things somewhere. I can't remember if we did. Well, I know we did a podcast. I wrote about it. Homecoming is not my favorite.
Okay.
I want Spider-Man stories. I don't want Iron Man Jr. stories. And as much as I loved Michael Keaton, and as much as I thought it was a great MCU movie, I did not think it was a good Spider-Man movie.
That's fair. I really enjoyed it, but it was primarily on the basis of Tom Holland and Michael Keaton.
Yes. Yeah, their interaction's incredible. And I love...
And just both of them individually and together, everything. Like, I love him as Peter. Zendaya, yeah.
She's a lot of fun.
She's great. The guy they got to play, I guess, Ned, even though he really is more of a, what's his name?
Yeah, I can't remember his name from
Genki.
Yeah, however, we've only ever seen it written, so the pronunciation is up in the air. But that's fine. I don't mind that kind of thing. I like synergy. I like taking the best bits of the mythology and translating it to the screen. That's fine with me. I have no problem with that. So, Spider-Man Far From Home, obviously I'm going to see it. It's part of the MCU.
Right.
And ever since
I
was a little
first
kid,
Phase 4 movie? Is this Phase 4 now?
I don't know if it's Phase 4 or if it's technically... Because typically what they've done is they've had the big final movie, and then they do kind of like an epilogue.
Yeah, it's just kind of like that. It's kind of a coda.
And it is. It's kind of that. And also, let me just go ahead and say, having watched, and for the listeners, if you haven't seen Far From Home yet, go see it and come back and listen to this, because we're going to spoil the fuck out of it.
Yeah, I'm not capable of talking about it without spoiling.
And there is some stuff that is big-time spoilers, particularly some of the after-credits stuff. But let me just say,
yeah, of course,
San Diego Comic-Con in a couple of weeks. I don't know that anybody other than Marvel should bother showing up, because just based on what we saw in Far From Home, and based on the fact that we know nothing of what's happening, or nothing has been announced beyond Far From Home, like,
no.
Marvel is going to own Comic-Con this year.
I mean, it's safe to assume Black Panther 2 is coming. You don't make that much money and not make another one.
And we know Black Widow.
And Black Widow, Captain Marvel 2 will probably be a thing, I'm sure.
For sure.
And we know Guardians 3 is coming.
Absolutely. But nothing has been announced, and there's a difference between relative certainty and announcements. And I think Marvel is going to come into Comic-Con, bend everybody else over, and just have their way with them.
Well, I think DC is staying away, aren't they? I mean, I think a couple of companies aren't.
I don't think Warner Brothers has a presence at all this year.
No. James Gunn did announce one thing. It will not be called as Guardians of the Galaxy.
Which is fine. I'm good with that.
I'm slightly disappointed, but not really.
We've discussed my feelings about the Quill Thor dynamic.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
But
it's true.
So, Spider-Man Far From Home, obviously, there's no way I'm not going to see it. Even though Homecoming wasn't the Spider-Man movie that I wanted, ever since I was a little kid, I have felt like Mysterio was the perfect cinematic Spider-Man villain.
Absolutely.
But more often than not, in offshoot media, he's treated as a joke. There have been video games that have used Mysterio, and he's always kind of the joke guy that Spider-Man sort of sees through what's going on, punches him in the head, and it's a one and done. He's not a boss character. He's like a side quest.
He's kind of a benign version of the Scarecrow.
Yeah, very much so. And actually, there were spots in Far From Home that, to a certain extent, felt lifted from the Arkham portrayal of the Scarecrow.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is fine. I have no problem with taking great ideas and sort of melding them to your own ends.
No, absolutely.
But I've always felt like Mysterio could be potentially such a great... If you look at Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery, he has so many great villains, but so few that are really movie-worthy. Like Rhino doesn't get a movie.
No.
Scorpion doesn't get a movie. He gets a scene in the after credits of a Spider-Man movie.
Yeah.
And he'll be part of Sinister Six if they go that route. But he can't carry a movie. But Mysterio, because of the nature of his illusions and everything else, like totally cinematic, totally perfect for a movie. And I'm happy to say, man, this was the Mysterio movie I've been waiting for since I was a little kid.
Yeah, it was absolutely great. Gyllenhaal is a really good actor who even admitted he was nervous, kind of coming into an MCU movie.
Sure,
and they do something a little different with the character. They do introduce him in a very different way. That if you don't know going in. If you've never heard of Mysterio going in, maybe it fools you a little bit. But, you know.
What I admired so much, though, is that even though, you know, us smart comic book guys, quote unquote, know Mysterio's deal, the way that they handled the marketing and the promotion, they never showed their hand. And we know that the MCU has taken liberties with certain characters.
Sure.
So, even though we know Mysterio, going into the movie, I didn't know for sure that it was going to turn out the way it did. Obviously, it's what I hoped for, because that's the Mysterio movie I've always wanted, but we didn't know.
No, that's fair. For a minute, I thought maybe we were going to see him fail and turn. As opposed to always being a bad guy, that maybe there was going to be kind of a tragic turn that he took. So yeah, you're right. They did, and Gyllenhaal was very sly in interviews, saying like, "Well, this is a different take on the character."
Yes,
and you know, I'm kind of nervous, and you know, when you look back on it, it's not a very different take on the character at all. It's
no, not at all.
Which is
wonderful, because it's exactly what I was looking for. And again, for the listeners, you've seen the movie by now. If you haven't, you shouldn't be listening to this.
No.
But Gyllenhaal just did this wonderful thing where the movie opens, and we have Nick Fury and Maria Hill, which, by the way, I really enjoyed seeing Samuel L. Jackson and Kobe Smulders.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed seeing them in this movie.
So did I.
They were in their traditional MCU roles, but engaging in sort of a different way, and they open the movie. They establish, like, this is our MCU intro. It doesn't start with Peter. It doesn't start with anything else. They're going to check out some big disaster, and I love the idea that they're out there doing this kind of stuff.
Well, seeing them always gives me kind of the warm and fuzzies, because to me, the real MCU started with the first Avengers. And I know Iron Man started it all, but the movies after that were hit and miss, and it wasn't until Avengers that really things kind of came together to me.
And it wasn't until Avengers that we really actually believed, holy shit, this is happening.
Right, exactly, and those two characters are kind of benchmarks of the Avengers, and S.H.I.E.L.D. and while I watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it bears no resemblance to the S.H.I.E.L.D. presented in the movies. And so, yeah, I get a little, there's a comfort factor with having them in the movie, especially the two of them together.
And they come to this Mexican village that has been devastated by a cyclone with a face.
With a face, yeah.
And they find Jake Gyllenhaal in this ludicrous costume that is actually...
That looks amazing.
Oh, it's incredible. It's straight out of the comics, but again, they use that brilliant MCU method of folding it into their mythology. And it's even mentioned in the movie, well, he looks like a combination of Iron Man and Thor. And you're like, holy shit, he does.
Yeah.
And it works. And, he tells them, you don't want any part of this. And what I loved so much is until we get the big reveal, Gyllenhaal is playing this, like, sort of boring, stoic hero.
Tragic hero, right? He's Cable.
Yes, he's very generic. And it's not bad in any way, but it's the same thing we've seen 1,000 times before. It's this character who walks alone.
He reminds me of Nathan Summers, right? Where he's got like this, this lost world that he's trying to reclaim or save, or the last survivor or something,
or he failed and he's trying to he's trying to make up for it. Like, it's amazing to watch that switch get flipped, and you're the one that used the term flipped when we were talking online before. Yeah. He flips a switch and turns from this sort of boring guy that you wouldn't want to see a whole movie about to weird, like, crazy villain guy.
Gyllenhaal plays two very different characters in the movie.
Yes.
And I noted one thing that I found kind of funny is part of the through line of this movie is who's going to be the next Iron Man. Yeah. And this was very similar to a certain twist in Iron Man 3. A different angle on it. But still, where all of a sudden you find out that someone was a performer and not really the villain that they were made out to be.
Well, and also you're dealing with your protagonist suffering from a certain amount of PTSD.
Yes.
Because Peter has lost his gateway. Like,
isn't that fascinating how they basically skipped Uncle Ben and are using Tony kind of as his Uncle Ben?
Although, did you notice, and you're right, but did you notice that Peter's suitcase was Ben's?
Oh, I did not see that. That's nice.
They do a little shot on it when he's closing it up, and it's got the initials BJP on it.
Oh,
Benjamin Parker.
Okay, that's cool.
Which
that's very cool.
I thought was a nice little touch, and actually they lingered on it just long enough for me to think, like, is this going to be a thing? But typically when that's a thing, it's Peter's parents that are like super spies or whatever bullshit they decide that's going to be.
I hate that.
No, shit. I don't care for that either. That's
no.
Blast that out of the continuity air hatch, please.
Yeah, I can't stand that.
He had Ben's suitcase, which was a nice touch.
Put that in this vault with his deal with the devil.
Oh my god!
And all that.
That's
all that bullshit.
Horrible. And this being the MCU that takes the best pieces of the mythology, I don't think we have to worry about that stuff showing up.
Probably not.
But we open with this big dramatic Mysterio. Who is this?
Yeah. But it's real quick, though. It's real quick.
It is. It's very quick, but it establishes the bigger world that we're in. And then we go into something that is both like devastating and hilarious at the same time.
I forgot.
I will always love you.
Whitney Houston comes on the soundtrack.
Oh my god!
Over the Marvel logo.
Over the Marvel logo. Everybody in the theater is dying. We don't know why this song is playing, but the connotation of the song is just so cheesy and hilarious that everybody in the theater is laughing. And then we go into this very clearly amateurish tribute to the fallen Avengers.
Which, I hate to say, touched me a little bit.
Oh, it totally did, because it's
being reminded. It wasn't even the tribute. Like, that was obviously a joke. It was just, oh yeah, we're living in a world without these guys now.
Yeah, and also that the world, my Phantom Jr. leaned over to me after they played that reel, and he was like, I didn't know the world even knew about Vision. I was like, that's a good point.
maybe we'll find out on the TV show.
Right, yeah. WandaVision coming soon to Disney Plus.
We'll see.
So.
Yeah, no, and it turns out that it's a tribute being put on the awkward video announcements
with Betty Brant.
By Betty Brant and whoever the other guy is, and they're both hysterical.
Oh, they're great. They're fantastic. What a great way. And this is one of the things I did love about Homecoming and about Far From Home is I felt the balance of John Hughesian teen angst romance and superhero action is perfect.
Yes, I think so too. I think they, I particularly love the awkwardness of those morning announcements because, we're about the age that when those kind of started, when schools would have those.
I was in my high school's very first AV class, and we
right.
did those morning announcements. Now we were not the pretty kids, so we weren't actually on camera,
of course.
But we produced them and we edited them and we cut them all together and we played the song that opened the morning announcements and all that stuff.
Right.
So like that was that was a big deal.
That's interesting. Yeah, no, I do like how they set it up, and then they bring us. We have our little morning announcements, and then they bring us into Peter's world. And for a good chunk of the movie, this is just a teen comedy.
Yes, absolutely. But it's balanced so well. And Tom Holland and the kid playing Ned, I apologize to the kid playing Ned for not knowing his name. Their chemistry is so good. Zendaya is great with them. And then
Jacob Batalon.
Okay, yes, he's
Jacob.
Oh my gosh, he's. I'm glad we got more of him in this one. He's a treasure.
He is.
And even Flash in this one, I didn't care for the way they did Flash in Homecoming, but I felt like he worked a little better in this one. He felt a little more organic as the, not really bully, but just jackassy teen guy.
See, that's what I love about him in both, and what I was telling you is that in this updated paradigm of high school, right, it's not the 1960s anymore.
Right.
That even Flash Thompson's a nerd.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he's super smart, and he's in academics and everything, and he's a rich kid, and that's kind of where his assholiness seems to come from.
Dude, when at the end of the movie, when they're going to get their rides at the airport, and the guy's there with the Thompson sign, and he says, "Mother couldn't come," and you're just like, oh, he's got issues.
Yeah, and I mean, what I like, though, is they've kept the core that makes Flash Thompson an interesting character, which is he's a guy who hates Peter Parker but loves Spider-Man.
Yes.
So that's, to me, all you need to keep in order to keep Flash.
Yeah. I'm on board with this iteration of Flash now. Another quick thing that they did when Peter was using Edith to look at everybody's phones, Flash's message was, "Mother and Father, I haven't heard from you in a couple of weeks."
Oh, was it? I didn't think I noticed that one. I didn't think I noticed that. Yeah. There's a very sad backstory. And actually, I mean, in a way, that kind of goes to a greater point you and I were talking about with the villains in both this film and the other one, is that while they definitely do villainous things, both Michael Keaton's character and his crew and Gyllenhaal's character and his crew, their motives are very understandable.
Yes.
And they're not even necessarily entirely wrong. Like the idea that in again, it's the same people making the movies, but the idea that the Spider-Man villains are born out of the aftermath of the Avengers. they're born out of the wreckage of these people.
And I think it's an interesting concept that Tony Stark, just by virtue of being such a massive, important, and influential person, there was no way he wasn't going to leave damage in his wake, whether he intended to or not.
Of course not. Yeah.
And that's what we're dealing with in both of these movies. Now, I will say, particularly with Mysterio gaining control of Edith and Stark's drones and everything, I do think at some point all of this being Tony Stark's, like every villain being Tony Stark's fault, is going to get a little old.
Yeah, even beyond the grave, he's fucking
right.
Fucking everything up.
Like
yeah.
even dead, I'm the hero is what Edith stood for, but
which is
also
great.
Even dead, I'm the villain. Like it's at some point we need to find a fresh spin on this stuff.
No, I agree, and in this case, it was Stark, which again is another parallel to Iron Man 3. When you think about it, because Iron Man 3 is partly born out of him dismissing someone's idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, though, they did it with such slickness in this one that I can't complain, because they, obviously Gyllenhaal was kind of worked into his scene, but when they did the flashbacks in the big reveal in the bar where they're going through each of these people and how Stark has dissed or dismissed them, we're flashing back to Obadiah Stane talking to that scientist, and that's the guy.
Yeah, I thought that was great.
I hate not knowing that actor's name. He's been in a number of things, like those big blue eyes.
Yeah.
And another interesting thing, and we're jumping around a little bit here, but that's because this is a spur-of-the-moment, organic dudes talking about a movie conversation in a way that no Needless Things podcast has ever been.
And I also saw 2 movies yesterday, because I saw Toy Story 4 like 3 hours after I saw Spider-Man.
Oh my gosh, I wish we could stay on after we're done and talk about Toy Story 4. I'd get so much to say about that too.
Yeah.
But
yeah, no, we're just so people know, we don't have a script. We're just bullshitting.
No,
so,
I have no notes. I have no agenda. This is purely
just talking
just
about the movie, and
hopefully
you'll find it moderately entertaining. But no, I think you're right. I think that they found a good balance. One criticism I would lay at the feet of the movie is that I think it's maybe a little over long. It's over 2 hours, and I think maybe they could have trimmed 10 minutes from the first half. I don't think I needed to watch 30 seconds of Martin Starr dropping his camera into the water. There were these kind of little slapsticky moments and comedic beats that were kind of almost that they said that John Hughes stuff, like it felt like Chevy Chase would have done it in Vacation type of things, that I thought maybe were a little honestly, actually, I just didn't like because I didn't think they were that funny. And didn't really land for me.
I don't disagree, but at no point did I feel the movie dragged.
No, I don't think it dragged.
There was stuff that was extraneous.
Yeah, there were just jokes that I just didn't feel landed or weren't particularly great. That I thought, okay, I love Martin Starr. I'm a Freaks and Geeks fan. I love the shit out of Martin Starr.
And Silicon Valley, I've.
Party Down is actually one of my favorite kind of hidden gem shows, and I love him. But and he's good in this. He's funny, but I felt maybe they relied on him and JB Smoove a little too much for comic relief. You
know what? I wouldn't even say relied on. I think they were just the director of the movie loves them and gave them a little bit more than was necessary because of that.
No, that's fair.
Yeah. That's the feeling I got, because I love J.B. Smoove too, although I don't know when he aged 20 years when I wasn't looking.
Yeah, he looked a little rough.
Wow.
Yeah.
Those guys.
It's been a while since he annoyed Larry David. It's been a while.
Those guys are both great.
Yeah.
But they were completely irrelevant to the plot.
Yeah, I mean, I think they could have done a little bit of less is more with them. But again, I'm not complaining. It was just a little something that kind of along the way, I just felt I want my Spider-Man movies to be funny, but I want Peter to be the primary source of that.
Yes.
And this kind of bungling teacher thing, while it was amusing at times, was also, I thought, a little in the way a little bit at times.
Yeah,
but,
I agree. It wasn't bad. It was just unnecessary.
Yeah.
Although every time J.B. Smoove talked about witches, and that was another one when Peter was looking at everybody's phones. His phone had a Google search for witchcraft.
So we get back into, just chronologically, just to run ourselves through it.
Sure.
Then we get that we do get confirmation out that May is 100% aware that Peter is Spider-Man.
Yes, which I love, and it works.
Which we had that little tag at the end of the first one.
Yes,
but it hasn't been addressed since, right? So
and also both movies have now technically ended on the dropping of an F-bomb.
but not quite. Yeah, but not quite.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that the only thing I thought was weird was a couple of the little spots that they put up on like Facebook and stuff. They put up the spot of MJ not wanting to swing anymore, which is end tag, which is the mid-credit tag. I thought that was strange to put that up as a trailer.
Yeah.
And then this whole thing with the Peter tingle, which I believe I said on Facebook is the name of my favorite gay porn star, but that Peter Tingle, the whole like joke about his Spidey sense and them not wanting to ever say the word Spidey sense. So they make up this slightly awkward, slightly profane name for it.
Like, I laughed every time it came up, but them not wanting to say Spidey sense is a little dumb.
Yeah.
That's black leather X-Men suit stuff.
It was a little too, again, it was funny the first couple times. I mean, May hitting him with the banana was funny.
Yes.
But, I'm still in mourning over the fact that that Marissa Tomei is Aunt May. But it makes sense. It just means we're gonna die one day. So
sure.
They but no, I thought they did a good job of kind of showing she's very supportive of him as Spider-Man.
I loved her. You need to take your costume. Don't forget, and the fact that she packed it in his suitcase, and that scene when he's going through customs. They open up his suitcase, and to us, the audience watching, they saw his Spider-Man suit. Oh no! But of course, in real life, they don't give a shit. It's some weird costume he has.
It's his pajamas.
Yeah. And they move along. Like, I thought that was a very clever bit of sort of using the audience's knowledge against them.
And the movie used a very kind of standard teen movie idea that Peter's got a plan of how he's going to win the girl.
Yes.
Right? Him and MJ have been flirting off and on. Another thing I want to hit first before we get to that real quick is one thing that was left over from Endgame that they explained in this was the idea that some of the class vanished and some of the class didn't. I think that's a very important beat to hit on.
Yeah.
That the blip is what they call it in this timeline. Or what they call it when everyone was gone.
That they gave it such a stupid name.
Yeah, that everybody blipped and was gone. But because I remember at the end of Endgame, when Peter goes back to school, I was kind of like, what the fuck? Like, hasn't it been years? So I was confused by that watching Avengers.
And yes, of course, it's convenient that all of the friends got blipped out.
Yes,
but at the same time, convenient. I don't care.
No, as long as they addressed it.
Yes.
And they made a couple jokes about, that guy came back, and Brad, right?
Yeah, Brad is the worst.
he really is the worst. Jesus Christ. You're like, I'd much rather hang out with Flash. But so anyway, I just wanted to push that because that was one of the big kind of consequences of the snap thing that they kind of addressed. I watched The Leftovers on HBO, and that show was way more upset about it than the movie was. The movie was just kind of like, some of us went away, some of us didn't, some of us got older, some of us didn't. Let's get on with the movie.
Yeah. Which they needed to, and then I thought they handled it well. I loved the marching band popping up in the middle of the basketball game.
Yes, all that was great. But anyway, so they have this very kind of standard teen movie setup, where he's got a plan to win the girl,
and we've all had that plan.
Yes.
And we all know how bad that plan is.
It's a terrible idea.
Yes.
It's always a terrible idea. And But I did like how they really worked in MJ's. This is it's not your daddy's MJ. It's a different MJ. The fact that her favorite flower is the black dahlia because of the murder.
Yeah.
That she's got this kind of, she's a big, like, My Favorite Murder fan. And there just seems... this depiction of MJ I really enjoy. Not to say that it's better or worse than other depictions we've had. It's fresh and different.
Well, and she has... They have been careful to give her a degree of agency that a lot of your female love interest, protagonist, whatever, have not necessarily had over the years.
Oh, I love the you look very pretty. Therefore, I have value. Yeah. And that's that would be a legitimate call on her part. So it was nice. Yes, they have given her much more of a character, much more personality, and she's just great at it. She's really good in this. I haven't watched Euphoria yet, her show, but I really like her in these movies. But I do like the fact that Peter has this very, like you said, John Hughesy. All right, I'm going to get the thing, and then I'm going to get the necklace, and then we're going to meet here, and then I'm going to take her to the Eiffel Tower, and then I'm going to tell her how I like her, and then even Ned's like, yeah, okay, but don't do any of that.
Yeah, it was great, and I loved another thing about MJ. Sorry, another thing about MJ, I love that she sort of broke the plot, but didn't just have that infallible genius thing. She found the piece of Mysterio's holographic projection equipment,
right, and
knew it was a thing, but it's not like she immediately just figured everything out.
Well, her main concern was the webs, though. Right?
Yes.
Was that she could sell that the what would be called, the night monkey? Night monkey. I love Ned's spur of the moment. He's called Night Monkey.
And then they go on when he drops down into the street in front of that lady, and she screams and goes, "Night monkey!" and runs away.
Yeah, so good, so good. Yeah, so no, I liked, and I thought maybe it was going to be a kind of bait and switch from the trailer when he said, "I have something to tell you," and she says, "You're Spider-Man." I thought it was going to be some kind of bait and switch, but no, she figured it out.
Yeah.
But I do like her kind of relief where she's like, "Wait, I'm right."
Well, and also that they did play with that a bit, where you're Spider-Man, and he's like, "Oh, so the only reason you've been watching me," because they made a point earlier of him talking about her giving him the looks and him feeling like there was chemistry there, and then there was that moment of pure, like, teenage boy destruction, where what he thought isn't the case, even though it is. We as the audience realize that, but because of the situation they're in, she says, "Oh, I just thought you were Spider-Man." And there's that total devastation, and Tom Holland's face just crumbles.
Well, that's traditional too, right?
Yes.
That's Clark Kent and Lois, right? That's that's that relationship. That's even Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and Kirsten Dunst a little bit, right? In those films, the idea that the girl's in love with the superhero, not the guy,
right? Right.
So that's kind of a traditional thing, but I like that. That's not the case. He's just taking it. His insecurity is taking him to that place.
Right, and then they don't have enough time to hash it out because the shit hits the fan.
Then, because they found out that Peter's a fucking moron and made a giant mistake.
Right, which he's a 16-year-old kid. Like,
I'm not complaining.
No, not at all. Like, I totally get that, because the movie went to the trouble of establishing from the very start that Peter did not want to be the next Iron Man. He's not comfortable with the idea that anybody might think he's the next Iron Man. He doesn't want it. So, he meets this guy who is, granted, very quickly established as a hero, but, it works. That, to me, the movie did enough of the work to earn that dumb decision that Peter made.
I'm going to be honest with you. Jake Gyllenhaal with that beard looking at me like that, I'd give him anything he wants.
Dude, especially once he put those glasses on.
Man.
Woo! He's got some natural smolder.
I'm very upset that he's getting better looking as he gets older.
It's ridiculous.
but so no, yeah, he does make a giant mistake, but you're right, it totally works, and even though he is presented as this kind of boring hero guy, there's an earnestness to them. There's an empathy that he has for Peter. And even though I knew he was fucking Mysterio, I still trusted him.
Yes.
In the moment, I trusted him.
Well, because we don't know. Again, the movie and the promotion beforehand did the work to earn our uncertainty.
Yeah, yeah. And while I wasn't surprised when he made his turn,
right.
I was pleased by it.
Oh yeah.
There's part of me that was still rooting for him. Like up until that moment, that was like, I hope maybe they really are going a different way with Mysterio, and so yeah, I thought that was really well done, like we said.
And when everything in the bar starts digitizing, it was the weirdest feeling for me, because I was absolutely delighted that they were going the classic Mysterio route, but I was also let down. I was like, oh no, he's betraying Peter.
I was very bummed for Peter.
But awesome, they're doing it. All the digitization starts happening, and he leans back and just immediately gets that smug dick-nosed grin and says, that wasn't so hard, was it? And you're like,
the way he talks,
you're like, no!
The way he moves is different. The way he talks is different. Yes. He just becomes this kind of just normal guy asshole.
Yeah.
And con artist, showman, whatever. But yeah, no, it was a really great moment, but I had the same kind of sinking feeling. But I was like, oh man, like,
well, and you kind of
Peter trusted you, asshole.
You kind of even knew it as Peter was walking away, because they did that one aw shucks shot through the window as he's walking down the street away from the bar. Like, he looks back that one last time at Beck and gives him that, like, thanks fella look, and even at that point you're kind of like, oh boy, what's getting ready to happen?
Well, the other thing that tips your hand too is that they've beat the quote unquote the big monster with like an hour left in the movie.
Right.
I mean, it's the unfortunate thing too is we know what time in the movie we're in.
Yeah.
And you're like, there's still a lot of movie left.
It was paced pretty well, though, to where, one, I didn't know how long the movie was. I mean, obviously, at this point, we've got a pretty good idea that MCU movies are 2 hours. But unfortunately, we have about half an hour of trailers before every movie we see now.
Yes,
so
we do.
It kind of removes... Let me throw you this. In the middle of our Far From Home conversation, let me pitch you my idea.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there are two things that need to happen to what's going on before we see theatrical movies, because people aren't going to theaters like they used to.
No.
It's a problem. They need to have 2, maybe 3 theatrical exclusive trailers, and that's it. These are trailers that you cannot see on YouTube. You have to go to the movie theater to see.
That would be cool.
And we maybe start, studios maybe start going back to having shorts prior to the movies.
I was stunned that Toy Story 4 didn't have a short.
I really was too, but at the same time, I was kind of glad.
But I haven't seen a Pixar movie in theaters for a while. This is the first Pixar movie I've seen in theaters in several years, so I didn't know when they had stopped doing that.
No, this was the first, because... oh shit! What was the last one? The one with the dumpling or whatever.
Coco.
Oh no, we didn't see Coco. In that matter of fact, I still haven't seen Coco.
I've heard it's good.
Incredibles 2, I think, had the dumpling short in front of it.
I didn't see that in the theater.
I didn't care for Incredibles 2 at all. Let me down. But to get back to Far From Home. To 30 minutes of trailers.
Well, can I add something real quick?
Yes,
please. Can I add something real quick? When I do watch a trailer on YouTube, please don't put a commercial in front of it. I'm already watching a fucking commercial.
Oh, and not only that, what is up with the and now it's time for the trailer you're about to watch. What is that shit?
All I know is I click on, oh look, there's a new trailer for Knives Out, the new Rian Johnson movie. I'll check that out. Here's a 15-second ad for Toyota. I'm already watching a commercial.
That's annoying. And I will say to go back to our ongoing discussion of Rian Johnson and The Last Jedi. No matter how I feel about The Last Jedi, I do like Rian Johnson as a creator, and Knives Out looks fucking incredible.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of fun.
Matter of fact, every trailer we saw prior to Far From Home, because there was one for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Which, I mean, obviously,
I'm that.
Come on.
Yeah, of course.
Knives Out looks awesome.
Kill anybody in a fight, you go to jail. It's called manslaughter.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, fantastic! And then Hobbs and Shaw. My gosh,
I'm a little let down by the most recent Hobbs and Shaw trailer, but we'll see.
Man, I'm all in. I'm all in.
I love those movies, but this is going to sound really fucking dumb. Untethered from the kind of mythos in the family, I don't know if I care as much, and that sounds really stupid because who cares?
See, but I haven't watched hardly any of those movies.
Oh, see, I've seen every one of them many times.
But,
and I like the characters, so I'm definitely going to see it.
See, to me, all this, when I look at this trailer, when I see Hobbs and Shaw, all I see is Rock, Statham, Elba.
And that is why I will be there. But I do. I do enjoy the Fast and the Furious movies because they are actually well-made, well-written movies. They're just really stupid, and the characters have tangible wants and goals, and it's very clear, and the writing's very clear. It's just what they want is stupid. What they believe in is stupid.
Was Charlize Theron the bad guy in the last one?
She was.
Okay, I did see that one. That was really good.
Yeah, except for you had to watch her make out with Vin Diesel, which was not good. I did not enjoy that at all. But I just don't know if Vin Diesel should kiss people on screen. Anyway, so
so back to Far From Home.
So anyway, so this one thing I would say before going into this movie, I was a little worried about was I've started to believe that Into the Spider-Verse might be my favorite and possibly the greatest superhero movie ever made.
It's incredible.
So I was a little worried that as much as I love Tom Holland and did like Homecoming and have loved some of the other movies, I was a little worried, like, am I ready to watch another Spider-Man movie that's not Spider-Verse?
That's not that, right.
And while I still don't think this is as good as that, because that movie, I've watched so many times since it came out on video, but I was still able to really enjoy this and remind myself that, like, as much as I love Into the Spider-Verse, that probably the biggest joy before that I've ever gotten out of Spider-Man was his appearance in Civil War. And when we met Tom Holland, we met Peter in Civil War, I was like, yes, finally. Thank you. You finally got it right. I mean, no one had, I think it was Kevin Smith pointed this out, no one had ever bothered to give him a Queens accent before.
Yeah.
Like, he sounds like a poor kid from Queens. Like, it just, as soon as he said two words in Civil War, I was like, oh, finally.
Well, and also, he's a kid.
Yes.
He looks like a kid. And, there are things I love about Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's performance as Peter Parker in Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But Tom Holland is, he's the idea of Spider-Man that we grew up with.
He is, but he's also thoroughly modern at the same time, though. He's not. Before these movies, if you would ask me my ideal Spider-Man movie, it would have been like Archie with superheroes, right? It would have taken place in the 50s with Letterman jackets and poodle skirts. Like, that's where I place Spider-Man in my head.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I think that would. By the way, I still think that would be a really cool, like, a period piece Spider-Man movie.
Oh, yeah.
But I like the fact that he is very much the Peter that we know, but he's Peter we know adapted for today, and I really do enjoy. I really enjoy Tom Holland's Spider-Man quite a bit, and it's not his fault that he doesn't have Peter Porker at his side. And so it's there was a Peter Porker. I paid money to see Peter Porker on the big screen. I still will never get over that. But yeah, no, he's listen. We all know that the number one, probably the most impressive thing Marvel has done over these past 11 years has been casting.
Yes.
Right? You know, we can argue over the movies, and some are better and some are worse, and even, you know, and I've admitted this, sometimes I've gotten a little fatigue from the Marvel films, despite loving them, and we can argue over this movie or that movie, but the casting down the line has been so amazing. And this movie and this Nook, I'm so glad they got a hold of Spider-Man from Sony. I'm so glad Sony saw the light, and was able to kind of share this with them. The casting is just amazing, and he's so good, and she's so good, and all the villains have been great. And I don't know, the acting in these movies is probably better than, no, not better than they deserve. That sounds dismissive, but they don't have to be this good for the movies to still be awesome.
Yeah. There's a lot of depth, a lot of emotional core to everything that happens.
Michael Keaton in the car in the first one was one of the best scenes that year.
Yeah, of any
movie. So it's just really phenomenal, and you can see where they're attracting these. You know, Jake Gyllenhaal has his own production company. He makes, you know, quote unquote serious films. You know, like he's a real.
What was
really interesting films?
What was the one he was in? This has probably been a few years ago now, where he had a video camera and he was going around recording action.
Nightcrawler.
Man,
it's a great performance.
That is my absolute favorite performance from him.
Yeah, that is a great.
And just for the listeners, if you have not watched Nightcrawler, you should do it immediately.
Yeah, it's one of his better performances. And in End of Watch, he's really good. And this guy that did Suicide Squad, his film. And he's really great. So anyway, but the one thing I was maybe a little reticent on this film was that I'm a little tired of us destroying other people's cities for action sequences. It kind of felt like, well, let's go to Venice and fuck up Venice, and then let's go to London and fuck up London.
But in this instance, that was the point of the villain's motivation.
It was.
So it wasn't just a random happenstance. It was literally Beck's intent to destroy these cities to draw attention to what he was doing.
No, that's absolutely true. It's more in the telling of it, in the process of it, that I've been like, hey, I've done this. But and we could also point out that Beck's plan is pretty much Syndrome's plan from the first Incredibles, right?
But Mysterio was around a long time before Syndrome, and he
was.
While he hasn't had this exact plan,
he's done something similar. Okay,
yeah, he has had the look at me, I'm a hero now. Like he's had that idea. It's happened.
Well, speaking of Mysterio, what did you think of the Scarecrow fear gas sequences? You know, where it got real impressionistic and
I absolutely loved them. I will say this though. In the comics, and I think in the animated series as well, Mysterio's illusions don't really work on Spider-Man because of his spider sense, or Peter Tingle, if you will.
Mm-hmm. And I will.
At one point, Mysterio actually, the mist that comes out of his suit actually has a chemical agent in it that confuses Peter's spider sense.
Right.
And
well, I think you kind of got the inverse in this, right? Where it affects him at first, and then by the end, his spider sense adjusts so that it doesn't work on him anymore.
And that was the thing, is like, initially I was like, well, wait a minute, why is he falling for this so completely? And I kind of wish they had used that a little bit to explain why Peter was so disoriented, but visually they were so awesome. It was so different from anything that we had seen, and it really, I mean, this is what I wanted out of Mysterio, is this kind of weird shit. So I'm down with it.
See, I bought it because don't you remember him getting hit with a banana?
That's a good point.
His spidey sense is not on point right now.
You're right. They established
they
right at the beginning
that he's a little off.
You're correct. You are correct.
So it takes him a while, and there is maybe they're drawing an idea where his spider sense is aligned to his confidence. It's when he's feeling likes. It's kind of like in Into the Spider-Verse, not the where Miles can't do the shock and he can't do it on command. It finally has to come to him.
Or that at this point he's been Spider-Man for maybe a year.
Yeah,
and maybe it's just not developed as strongly.
Well, we didn't see it until Infinity War.
Yeah, and Infinity War technically was the first time where we saw like visual evidence of it when the hairs on his arm rose up on the bus.
Really, all we're going off of.
Yeah.
I thought it made it glorious at the end. I thought it made it glorious at the end in the hallway scene, which my audience got a huge cheer.
And yes,
wrecking robots in a hallway. But
and he just when he grabs Mysterio, and grabs the gun, Tom Holland just looks wrecked because his innocence has been shattered.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Yeah, he's very good at that moment.
That was so raw and like just heartbreaking.
Well, and it's also Peter's here's yet another guy who could have been a mentor to him. That was a mentor to him briefly. That he's now, in a way that, Michael Keaton wasn't really, but he was his girlfriend's dad, and now with Tony gone, and now here's another guy who came along that, remember, he thinks that Mysterio should be the next Iron Man, right? So there's almost this guy's like, oh man, I thought you were going to be Tony, and so there's also a disappointment at the end there. His innocence is wrecked, and he's been through a lot, and this man is dying. But there's also just a disappointment of like, I don't know. There was just something very, again, father and sonny, mentor-y about it. That was interesting. Which actually, from what I've seen from the interviews, kind of translates well into their actual off-screen relationship.
Yeah, all of the pictures of them and the weird stuff that they've been wearing to the premieres and stuff.
Yeah,
they seem to have a fun relationship there.
I think Tom really looks up to Jake.
Yeah,
and it shows, and it works well. It does the movie a good service by doing that. With that relationship, it kind of bleeds through a little bit, which I liked. But no, I think there's so much. We didn't talk about how much Happy Hogan's in this movie.
Lots of happy in May.
Lots of happy in May, which was. Which I like the little twist at the end that she only sees it as a summer fling.
Yeah. So, oh man, and Peter has to leave because it's so awkward.
Yeah, he's like, I got to get out. I got a date. So I do like that, but I like seeing. I mean, I don't know. There's something kind of fun about Favreau sticking around, and Favreau having been here, being the one who directed the first Iron Man, and now we know, you and I are excited because of his next television project.
Oh gosh!
But just having him stick around and play
starring
Happy,
Werner Herzog
with Carl Weathers.
Combat Carl.
I'm gonna probably end up buying a 12-inch Carl Weathers Star Wars figure. So
my gosh, I hope so.
But they had but so I thought, having him in it is kind of obviously is a reminder of Tony.
Yeah.
But also of just Favreau's a good energy in these movies. He plays it right. He knows the tone. He set the tone.
Well,
partially, right?
I like that Happy is not the answer guy. He's the Rock. He's stable. But when it comes down to it and he says, what are you going to do? He's not saying, what are you going to do, because he has an answer to that question. He's literally asking Peter, what are you going to do?
That scene, actually, that was the scene that got to me, was when they're in the jet and Peter starts building his suit. In that moment, he looks like Tony.
Well, and that's one thing I wanted to bring up, and I'm glad we came back around to it.
Yeah,
is that whole scene, because I when we were messaging before we started recording, I said I would actually be okay if Peter does become the next Iron Man-like figure in the MCU, and then they bring Miles in to actually be Spider-Man, because to me, we haven't really seen what I think of as Spider-Man.
No, because, bitch, he's been to space.
Right, exactly. We haven't seen a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and I would actually, watching that scene with, like you said, Happy is sitting there watching Peter do exactly the stuff we saw Robert Downey Jr. do in the Iron Man movies.
And it was so touching for Happy. It was touching for the audience.
Yes.
I only saw Endgame once, but I thoroughly enjoyed it, and so that kind of reminder kind of hit well. I thought it was good, and then a joke that was interestingly very generational, because when he puts on the AC/DC, which was a nice touch.
I love
right?
Led Zeppelin.
And then he says, "I love Led Zeppelin." My audience was fairly young, and nobody laughed.
Oh, our audience all laughed.
Because I think a big chunk of my audience did not realize that was a joke.
Right. Yeah. No, I think most of our theater, we were in a pretty young theater, but they all seemed to get it.
Yeah, mine was like, I laughed, and then like I didn't hear a whole lot of other laughter, and I was like, oh, maybe they think this is Led Zeppelin.
I will say this, there were several occasions, and I can't think of anything specific, where my laughter was the loudest in the theater, and I was kind of like, ooh.
Sometimes that's the product of older people making the movie for younger people.
Well, and that's what it is these people are our age.
Yeah, and there's going to be jokes that they make that are going to fly over the heads of... Not fly over the heads, it just are going to relate to the kids watching it currently.
Which is fine, because they tend to be very much like the Pixar movies. There's some stuff for people our age, there's some stuff for the kids, there's some stuff like it. They do...
In the case of Toy Story 3, there's some things for sadists.
Oh my gosh. Don't even get me started.
So that's what I was trying to do, is try and poke you. But I will say one thing that, at least judging by my crowd, one thing that flew real well was the relationship, the love story. It seemed to hit when MJ finally gives him just a little... I love how awkward their first couple kisses were.
Yes, they did not go into the, superhero kiss.
No, it was just like a peck. And this girl in the back of the audience, she couldn't have been probably more than 15, 16, went, "Thank you." like we've been waiting the whole damn movie for that.
We had a similar response. I think a girl somewhere around us said, "Yay!" Like something, something along those lines. Like it got a very warm reception. And again, I feel like it's because the movie did the work.
It does, and it's been. This isn't the case of him trying to win her over. Right? They're two kids that like each other that just don't know how to say it, right? Or just too awkward to say it. I do love, God, what was it? What Mysterio says to him? I give you a 50-50 chance with her. You are kind of awkward.
Yeah.
I thought that was, and you're like, yeah, he could easily mess this up. She obviously digs him, but he could totally screw this up. And yeah, I think, I don't know, man. I did like this movie, I think, more than Homecoming. Now, my experience watching Homecoming was a little tainted by the fact that I saw it in 3D at a very shitty theater in Atlanta when I was home. We talked about this, one of those, was it UA, Classics or whatever? Or AMC Classics or whatever it is.
So the lighting wasn't good?
The bulb was, turned. It was so low, and the entire finale of that movie takes place at night on a moving airplane, and I couldn't tell what was happening at any given moment. I could see what was happening better with my glasses off than I could with the glasses on for the 3D. And I've watched the movie since, and I do really enjoy it. But this one, I came out kind of really happy. I came out really, really excited for it, and we should get, of course, to the tags.
Yeah, we've got to get to the post-credit scene, the first one of which...
It just made me... it made me upset because of what story is coming, where the storyline's going.
Right.
Just worried for Peter. But, so we come back, and Peter and MJ have had their little date where he's swinging her around New York. And one thing I will say that... once they got back to New York and he was kind of swinging through New York, it did remind me, I really hope the next one takes place in New York.
Yeah.
I'd really like...
We need a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man again.
And I just enjoyed watching him swing through the buildings, and that's not something we got as much of. And then her saying, "Let's never do that again," which is funny, but I'd already seen it because oddly they used that in commercials, which I thought was strange.
But I did like it because it goes against the traditional... the Superman taking Lois Lane for a flight, and it's all sweet and wonderful, and they're both so happy afterwards, and MJ is just that was terrible.
Can Can you read my mind?
Right.
So I've never understood that scene as a kid. No, it's true, and I like the fact that she was in utter horror the entire time.
Yes.
But then a news broadcast comes on, and only in a way that happens, of course, in movies like this,
right,
where 9 feet tall, and it just happens to be about the person we're with who's sitting there in front of this giant screen. And who comes on screen playing J. Jonah Jameson?
Oh, my gosh. Vern Schillinger himself.
Academy Award winner J.K. Simmons.
returning to the role.
Returning to what it could arguably be the best part about the first 3 Spider-Man movies.
Man, and the thing is, you know, we're both, well, everybody now is online all the time, and we see message boards and comment sections where everybody's sort of doing their pipe dream like, oh, it would be great if they brought him back as J. Jonah Jameson, but you know it's never going to happen because this is a different continuity. It's a different world. They can't do that.
Who gives a shit?
Man, nobody gave a shit because there he is.
Because J.K. Simmons is awesome.
Oh, my gosh.
and he comes on.
So perfect.
And he comes on screaming, and it's a good setup. Mysterio, with his dying breath, it seems like.
Which was just brutal.
Frames Peter.
And he said though, and that's the thing is this didn't come out of nowhere. He said, I have contingency plans. They set it up, they established it.
And he even said something to Peter along the lines of, you'll learn.
Yes.
Like, you'll see what happens, or something like that. You know, kind of, you know, it felt like it was in a different context in the moment, but when you look back, it's kind of like, well, you'll see what happens when they all turn against you.
Oh, gosh.
And so that was, but in as much as horrified as I was about him revealing who Peter Parker, the Spider-Man's Peter Parker to the world, and J. Jonah, I didn't matter. J.K. Simmons was on screen screaming, and that's all I cared about.
This a menace, a public menace. Public enemy number one.
I heard
Mysterio, the greatest hero of our time.
From the dailybugle.net, I think it was, or something like that.
Yeah.
That was such a joy. Like, it made up for, in a lot of ways, the lack of Stan Lee cameo.
Yes.
Like, this is the first one without a Stan Lee cameo, I think.
Oh, you're right.
So, I mean, other than there was a whole title card at the end for Stan and Jack. But besides that, there was no Stan Lee cameo in this one.
Well, the revelation of Peter's identity does sort of lead into, because what happened in this movie made me retroactively, I think, appreciate Homecoming more. I need to go back and watch it again and kind of take this all as one story.
Yeah.
But now that I do feel the way that I do, and that Peter could potentially step up into a role that's different from Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And again, maybe this revelation of his identity will force that.
Maybe so. I mean, maybe you're onto something simply because, I mean, as much as I want to get at least one more good Spider-Man movie out of Tom Holland.
Sure.
But we know, I mean, we talked about, Marvel closing down the Ultimate Universe. They staged an entire event just to get Miles Morales into the main universe, right?
Right.
The entire point of that entire event, I forget even what it was called because they make so many of them. Ultimatum.
Yes.
Was to get him into Earth 616.
Or no, that wasn't Ultimatum. That happened in was it Secret Wars?
It was something. It was the one where we were melding, and the only thing that happened at the end of it was Miles was now on Earth. Is it six
I can't remember what it was. I can't remember if it was what led to Secret Wars or if it was Secret Wars.
But it was the Save Miles Morales crossover, and
I just remember Miles had a cheeseburger in his tights, and he gave it to Molecule Man.
Yeah, and he's an important character to Marvel. He's shown his viability into the Spider-Verse.
Yes.
And I think we would be fools not to think that we're going to see him one day live action.
Absolutely.
I mean,
we've already met his uncle.
We've already met Uncle Aaron. But and again, I have reservations only because I have Miles and he's awesome already. But that, and I just because I haven't talked about this on the podcast, Miles' leap of faith in Spider-Man into the multiverse is probably my favorite scene of the last 5 years.
Oh, I think it's one of the greatest comic book movie scenes ever.
I think it's the greatest comic book movie scene ever. I think
you might be right.
When he jumps off and the combination of the music and the way it's done, and that gorgeous shot where he's falling up, is astounding. And my 6-year-old, she'd kill me, 5 3/4-year-old, she hasn't seen the whole movie because it's a little old for her, but we've watched the last half hour many times because she loves the soundtrack. She loves that song.
Yeah.
And she'll say, can we watch the part where Spider-Man jumps off the building? And the moment when he hits the nadir and he flings up his webs, and the How You Like Me Now comes on from the song and the soundtrack, and he swings up. It is the most thrilling, joyful, like, Spider-Man experience I think I've ever had.
I mean, it's almost as iconic and memorable as when Halle Berry first jumps across a rooftop in Catwoman.
Of course. Well, I mean, listen, man. When you're swinging with the greats, I was gonna say Brandon Lee jumping across the rooftops in The Crow, but kids, ask your parents. But they keep trying to bring it back. But yeah, no, I think, but you're right. I mean, I want to see one more solid.
Him as Spidey, yeah.
Him as Spidey. Him in New York as Spidey.
Well,
I don't know.
He needs to graduate.
I think that's where we're headed, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we head towards him graduating. Which I have an affection for the first 2 Raimi Spider-Man movies, but he graduates like 10 minutes into the first one.
Yeah.
Like they're in high school for maybe 15 minutes before, because they're like, the guy we hired's like 30. So all I remember from that, not all, but I remember in that movie, you meet him and then like 20 minutes in the movie, him and Franco have a loft downtown.
I will still say though that Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2 is the best Spider-Man movie as of now. Live action. Best live action Spider-Man movie as of now.
Best live action movie, probably yes. There's a shot at the end of it with Mary Jane running slow motion her wedding dress that just makes me laugh for the wrong reasons. But besides that, no, I like that movie quite a bit, live action wise. But this one's up there for me alongside it.
It's much more Spider-Man-y than Homecoming was, because he's not relying on a tech suit. He is just being Spider-Man, dealing with Spider-Man stuff.
And to be fair, he is the new Tony Stark because he almost blew up his own bus. So that is very Tony. That is very Tony to be like to he does save the bus from himself.
And that was a cool shot too when he popped up out of the top of the bus.
That was great.
That was as cool as Tom Holland has looked, and I mean that in the best way possible.
I mean, they have yet to hit. Sorry, they have yet to hit the moment. I guess they came close with the ferry, but like the moment where Tobey Maguire stops the train.
Yeah, that's
Spider-Man 2.
Huge.
Is still such a amazing, probably the most heroic moment in any Spider-Man movie. And then even, it's a little cheesy, but I love it, of the New Yorkers passing him back, and their wonder that he's just a kid, and that scene's amazing. Although I thought they did a good job. I like the shot of him holding the ferry together in Homecoming. I thought was really cool. And I do like that these 2 movies are just him kind of fucking up. Because like you said, he's 16.
Yeah, he's trying his best. Now let's... we have to discuss that second post-credits scene.
That one was a little,
one was so much more post-credits scene than I was expecting, and 2...
It changes the whole movie.
It fixed my only major problem with the movie, because the whole time the movie's going on, like, I was really enjoying it, but at the back of my head the whole entire time, I was like, I just don't believe that this guy fooled Nick Fury and Maria Hill.
I felt that way too. Yeah.
And then they fix it at the end, because it's not Nick Fury and Maria Hill, it's Talos and his wife.
No, I thought that was very clever.
And it's Ben Mendelsohn. I love Ben Mendelsohn. Just hearing his voice.
No, that was great.
This other movie was fantastic.
Was my favorite part of Captain Marvel. I didn't love that movie. I enjoyed it. I like parts of it. I didn't love that movie, but he's part of the movie that I did love. And so that was very cool. It was confusing to me for a second. So then where is Nick
the
Fury?
fact that
He's
they
in
were
space?
The fact that they were listening to A Message to You, Rudy, was the first thing that I was like, this doesn't seem like Nick Fury music.
No.
What? Because my theory going into this movie, because from the beginning, I had a problem. Before I even saw the movie, I had a problem with the idea that Mysterio was fooling Nick Fury. Because we didn't know, but again, going in, my assumption was Mysterio's gonna Mysterio.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I'm going to have a problem with this movie if he's somehow getting over on Nick fucking Fury.
Yeah.
And as soon as we hear that song, I'm like, well, what is this? And my thought going into the movie is maybe Chameleon is Nick Fury.
Right.
Maybe we're doing another double villain thing. Right. And we have Chameleon playing Nick Fury, and that would totally allay all of my concerns. But this was so much a better solution because it plays into the greater MCU, and then we get the fucking bonkers idea of Nick Fury out in space with a shit ton of Skrulls. Skrull. Oh my gosh. No, he's not with Skrull.
Uh-oh.
There are no Cyclopses in this movie.
This is going to spiral into a Skrull discussion.
So Nick Fury is in outer space with a buttload of Skrulls. What is going on, Chad?
And how long has he been there?
Right.
Was he even at the funeral?
What was he at the funeral? Where was he? Is he been on Earth this whole time?
I don't know.
We know nothing anymore.
And what does it have to do with anything? That's the other thing too. Like, what is it like? What is that leading us into?
Right. Is that significant? Or when we come back in the next MCU movie, is that going to be kind of an aside where Nick Fury is just going to be like, yeah, I went on vacation with a bunch of Skrulls in space, which I don't think will be the case.
No, it looked like they were maybe building it reminded me of kind of the scenes in Winter Soldier and Avengers with him building his weapons, warships, I think Winter Soldier was the big one, right?
We'd like to think that Fury has grown past that sort of thing. But I don't know. Dude, that was crazy.
Fury doesn't grow.
Well, yeah, you're right. Well, he does, because as we saw in Captain Marvel, he used to be a fairly, fun, shiny, happy guy.
And then he got his eye scratched out by a cat. Yeah. I was confounded by the end. Again, I do think it was a nice touch to show that, no, don't worry, Nick Fury wasn't fooled by the dude from Brokeback Mountain. But the idea that he is on some spaceship or space station or planet, hanging out with a bunch of Skrull, getting ready for a war or something.
So I didn't.
Maybe that's a teaser for Cap 2.
I didn't catch what he said.
Yeah.
Did he say, let's get back to work, or let's get back to war?
I think he said back to work.
I think he said back to work.
It's like, is this a setup for Cap 2? Is it a setup for Guardians 3?
Right.
Is it a setup for the Eternals? Is that what they're doing?
Well, and the thing is, we have no idea because Marvel has announced nothing.
Nothing, yeah.
For all we know, and look, I was thinking about this on the way home because random crazy thoughts go through my head after I see big comic book movies that I love. For all we know, there could be, and this is insane, but there could be another Marvel movie before the end of the year that they've already shot and we don't know about.
I don't think there will be, but yeah.
I don't think there will be.
I don't think there's room on the slate.
But, we don't know what these guys do, and they're so good at doing what they do now that with digital effects and what with the ability to create scope in a small environment, I mean, we have no idea. They could have a movie ready to go, and I'm not saying before the end of the year, but the next movie could be done and we don't know it yet. Well,
and I kind of like that sense because one thing, up through Phase 3, we knew when every single movie was coming out, right? And they go out of their way to lay out their slate.
Well, and
their future projects.
I think
that was part of a problem for me with Infinity War.
And I think that's part of where the fatigue comes from, too.
Yes.
Is there's a certain momentum that takes away from your enjoyment of it takes away from your enjoyment of the present because you know what the future is.
Infinity War, the end of Infinity War left me cold, mostly because I knew there was more coming.
Right. Right.
And I knew it was all going to get reversed, and I didn't know how exactly, but I knew that, the Holland's performance at the end of that movie is devastating, I do end up liking Infinity War better after Endgame, which is what I was hoping.
Right.
Because they did do, I think, some interesting things about, years passing between, and I thought that was kind of cool.
Well, and that they didn't just undo everything.
No, they didn't. No, there were still consequences from it, which I liked. But at the time watching it, I felt a little let down just because I'm like, yeah, but I know Black Panther 2 is coming someday. Right. There's just that, and I can't disengage that part of my brain. Unfortunately, I wish I could. But but part of that is they make us very aware of their plans. And so the fact that they've kind of been hush-hush about it, and I think you're right. I think at Comic-Con, they're going to drop one of those PowerPoint slides. Oh,
it's going to be a fucking 50 megaton bomb of nerd madness.
They're like, because it's not over.
No, it's not over.
Everyone's like, Endgame, isn't that the last movie? I'm like, well, just people are like, oh, you excited for the end of Star Wars? And I'm like, it's not the end of Star Wars.
There's no end of Star Wars.
This is the end of... It's the end of the Skywalker saga.
Right.
As far as we know, but it's not the. They've already announced 3 more movies. It's not, it's not the end of Star Wars. And Endgame was not the end of. Even in this, they're like, they were talking. Now it wasn't. We find out later it wasn't Fury, but he was talking about the Avengers.
Well,
right?
And that's the thing is we don't know how much. Nothing that the Fury we spent time with in Far From Home is necessarily accurate or true. Because we find out he really doesn't know anything at the end of the movie.
No, he was just faking it the whole time. In your opinion, will we see in this current iteration, will we have another movie with the word Avengers in the title?
I think so, and I think it will be something along the lines of New Avengers.
Yeah.
I think so. Because, look, even going outside of storyline reasons, the brand value of Avengers is just too much for them not to use it again.
I am interested to see how they're going to do moving forward, because they did lose, they have said goodbye to 2 of their heavyweight stars, and while others have come to replace them, I don't know. I'm curious to see how the world, the movie going community after Endgame, after kind of going through this 11-year journey, how they react to a world without Downey in it.
It's too early because I feel like, and I think we've discussed this before, I feel like going forward, the intent is probably that Chadwick Boseman and Brie Larson are our new big heavy hitters.
As I love Anthony Mackie. I really do.
Yes.
But he doesn't have the star power that Robert Downey Jr. Chris Evans has.
Well, but he isn't. Well, the thing is, though, did Chris Evans? Well, no, even early Chris Evans, even when he first took on the role of Cap, Chris not at that level.
Dude, Chris Evans was good in Fantastic Four, and nobody was good in Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
No one's ever been good in a Fantastic Four movie ever, except for Chris Evans.
Mackie. But the thing is, I think,
and they're giving them a show.
I think they can make him. Well, that's the other thing, though, is with there being a Falcon and Winter Soldier show. Like, what is our cinematic future? Are those characters now sort of a TV realm? And I'm not trying to say they're going to separate things the way that they did with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the MCU, because that's not going to happen with Disney Plus, because that's a whole different beast.
Thing.
Right.
Yeah.
But moving forward, perhaps, the Avengers we know with WandaVision and those, maybe those become sort of the televised thing or the streaming thing. And moving forward, we have Black Panther and Captain Marvel and Doctor Strange, because I think we're pretty sure there's another Doctor Strange coming.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's interesting. It almost feels like for Disney Plus, they're doing more. They're thinking more in terms of miniseries, right?
Yeah, which is fine. I don't, because let's be honest, all the Netflix Marvel shows 13 episodes was too much for all of them.
Yes, and 8 episodes was not enough for the Defenders.
It was too much, in my opinion.
Well, no. It depends on how you feel about the Defenders. But no, it is interesting though. They're thinking about these as miniseries, and that's how they're. I mean, that's the only way they're able to attract the talent.
Well,
right,
and the thing is, you look at something like Game of Thrones that did 8, 10 well, not 8, 10 episode season, but an average of 10 episodes a season.
Yeah. Right.
And was very cinematic. I mean, very easily
changed TV.
Yeah, it was 10-hour movies. I mean, that's basically what they were doing. So the whole paradigm is different now.
Well, it's the thing I always said watching Game of Thrones, that the only thing movies really have going for them anymore, like as far as big screen experience, is a spectacle. Because the characters are honestly better on television because you have more time to spend with them.
Yes.
The writing's better on television because, again, the writers have more time to work on these characters and take them through all the different paces. The only thing movies really have is spectacle, and Game of Thrones started to show that TV spectacles right on your heels.
Yeah.
And when you can get things that are as satisfying as some of the battles on Game of Thrones, I'm excited to see what they do for the Star Wars shows. I'm excited to see what they're able to wrangle up. I look at Game of Thrones and I go, I'll take that budget on a Star Wars show, or I'll take half that budget.
Sure.
And it'll be interesting to see, but it's not but Diego Luna's not hurting for work, right? So he's doing this because he wants to do it, but I guarantee you it's not for forever.
Right.
Same with Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen, and same with Mackie and Sebastian Stan.
Well, this is another thing that we've discussed.
I always want to call him Sebastian Shaw, but
Sebastian Shaw.
That's a different guy.
Different guy. Different guy with cybernetic parts.
Yes, it's true.
We've discussed this before as well. If we're moving from a phase of, instead of getting 2-hour movies, we're getting 6 to 8 hour miniseries.
Yeah, I'm
fine with that,
dude. I'd be okay if that's all Star Wars was from now on.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. And look, Marvel's not leaving theaters. Like I said, I think maybe. No. At most, we're going to see a line where our classic characters are getting the miniseries and our new characters are getting movies. But at this point, the line is so blurred in production quality between the two that if they want to take the quality of character development and writing and casting that they've had in the MCU so far and move it to a smaller screen, fine.
Well, yeah, it's a new world, right? I mean, it's when they announced that they were going to do the Cassian Andor show, I was like, oh, okay, that sounds interesting. And then when they announced Diego Luna was doing it, I was like, I'm sorry, what?
Right.
Like, I thought, because 5-10 years ago, you just would have recast it.
Yes.
Right? And it would have been and we would have watched the hell out of it, right?
But now we have
that, Donald Sutherland was not on MASH, the TV show.
No, that never happened. You just dealt with, even when they did the Blade TV series, it wasn't Wesley Snipes, it was the guy from Onyx or whatever.
So they have to have this...
Sticky fingers.
Sticky fingers. So they have to have that. I never watched the Blade television show.
Once they got past the pilot, it was actually pretty good.
I'll take your word for it. But
it's fine. That's all you should do, really.
Yeah. But no, you're right. I mean, this idea that Tom Hiddleston's going to do a Loki series?
Fucking bonkers.
And you're like, oh, well, one, they're backing up the truck for that, and two, like that's awesome. Like that's people aren't. I mean, we know this now. I mean, Nicole Kidman and Reese Witherspoon have a television show on HBO. It's not
right.
The stigma's gone. The stigma is absolutely gone.
Well, the best work Amy Adams has ever done was on HBO.
Yeah, no, absolutely phenomenal.
I mean, and that's the thing, is the talent knows that.
I want Tony Hopkins on Westworld. Like, it's not.
Gosh, yeah.
It's crazy that this is the world we're living in, and if anyone's got the money to make it happen, obviously it's Disney.
Yeah.
I would like to pitch to them. I know there were rumors, and it's not going to happen. But I need Ewan McGregor, Joel Edgerton, and a 12-year-old who looks like Mark Hamill, and 8 episodes, and we're good to go.
Yeah.
And we're good to go.
Oh,
the twins. under the twin suns or whatever you want to call it. And then I'm still holding on hope for your Jabba Scarface story one day. But I would love it.
And my Jabba's Palace story as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh
yeah.
man,
and then in 35 years, someone will let me make my Ewok story. But
I want it. I want it. We got to wrap this thing up.
Yeah.
We've got to before it turns into.
We got to talk about Toy Story now.
Yeah, right. Final thoughts on Far From Home. For me, I went in, not really too sure what I was going to think about it, because Mysterio is a character that's very near and dear to me, and like I said, I've been wanting a great Mysterio movie for decades. And while I love the MCU, I have not so far. I think Tom Holland is great, but the way that they've used the character of Spider-Man thus far, I just haven't liked. But in this one, they totally won me over. And I loved this movie. There are, I can't even really think of anything I had an issue with at this point.
Yeah. I loved it too. How do I put it? I really like Tom Holland. I really like his version of Peter Parker. I did like Homecoming more than you did. This one got up on me, honestly, weirdly. I just looked. I walked up the street. My theater was playing it, and I was like, "Oh shit! It's out today." I thought it was out. I didn't think it would come out till the 4th.
Yeah. It had a
so I kind of
Tuesday release date. What is that all about?
Spur of the moment, just went and saw it. I was like, "Well, I got nothing to do," and it's Spider-Man, and I found myself really enjoying it. Like I said, I was a little worried after Into the Spider-Verse. That movie still has my heart in a way that I don't think any live-action Spider-Man movie ever will. It's the Mask of the Phantasm for Spider-Man.
Yes.
But no, it's a really good movie. It's really fun. Does it fit into the Marvel formula? Sure. Does it feel like an MCU movie? Yes. But it felt fresh enough to me, and I think the kids, at the end of the day, the kids make it work. I believe the kids. I believe the relationships. And as we all know, with Spider-Man, he can fight the coolest villains in the world, but the people in his life have to work, and his relationships to the people, to his aunt, to his friends, to MJ, those are the things that really have to work. And I feel like they put enough concentration on that to really make it pay off, so that it is. I found it both satisfying as an action movie and satisfying as a teen movie, which is what I want a Spider-Man movie to be.
And Samuel L. Jackson's impersonation of Ben Mendelsohn's impersonation of Nick Fury was just great.
And I'd like to reiterate, J.K. fucking Simmons.
Oh my gosh, that happened.
And I might have been the only one in my theater excited, but I was excited for all of us.
No, we were all... I don't know about the rest of the theater, but the three of us, because obviously my son has seen all of the other Spider-Man movies multiple times, and he popped big to see, because he leaned over to me and he was like, "Wait a minute, that's J. Jonah Jameson from the other movies," and I was like, "It is, it's great." And he was like, "That's really cool."
And that does not mean he will show up in the others at all. That does not mean we will get J. Jonah Jameson in the third movie, because he's hopefully still going to be in high school in the third movie. But even if it just ends up being an Easter egg, kind of like Howard the Duck was, I'll take it. It was awesome.
I don't know. I feel like with what they established, he's almost the foil. He has to be the foil for the next movie.
He could be.
I feel like that's what they set up, but who knows? We'll find out.
It'd be funny if he was always that we never see him in person. He's just an internet talking head the whole time.
Oh yeah, I'd be fine with that. Because like they did in the video game. Did you play the PlayStation video game?
I own it. I have not played it yet.
Well, in that game, Jameson is sort of a Rush Limbaugh type guy. And you never even see him in the game, but Spidey, as he's swinging through the city, you have the option of tuning into radio waves and stuff.
Oh, okay, right, like GTA.
Yes, exactly. And you'll every once in a while you'll hear Jameson's show come across Spidey's like radio monitor.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And he's just hate mongering Spider-Man the whole time.
I haven't played the game yet because those games tend to destroy all productivity that I have.
Yeah, and that one will, man, because it is very.
I'm still in the middle of Red Dead 2, so.
Oh, jeez.
I did play Vader Immortal for my PlayStation or for my Oculus, the VR experience that David Goyer wrote.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's like a 45-minute thing. It's going to be told in chapters, so this is just the first chapter.
Goyer writing Star Wars is interesting and also weird.
For these little like 45-minute VR stories to have someone, whatever you think of them, to have someone who works at that level working on something like this, to me is a treat, because we're used to having not having necessarily as big a names attached to these kind of smaller projects.
Right.
And it's a very cool VR experience. Maya Rudolph plays your droid.
Oh, that's fantastic.
At the very beginning, you get sucked out of hyperspace by an interdictor cruiser, and I was yelling at her, and it's, she can't hear me, but I'm like standing in my living room just going, that's a fucking interdictor! That's an immobilizer class Star Destroyer, and yelling at her, and the first time you come face to face with Vader, it's legitimately creepy, and you get a lightsaber, and lightsaber in VR is perfect because there's no weight to the lightsaber blade.
Right.
And so you have your controller in your hand, and it feels real nice. I spent at least 5 minutes just posing with a lightsaber, like above my head, like on the New Hope poster. It's good stuff, and that was only like an hour type of thing. But man, diving into Spider-Man, I'm going to. We got to get some work done first.
Well, speaking of that,
yes,
to sign this thing off, where can we find you online? What are you up to now? ChadJShonk.com, and you can also find me at ChadJShonk on Instagram. I haven't touched my Twitter in a while because I value my mental health. Yeah, right.
And but you can see me at the Atlanta Comic-Con.
Yeah, that's right.
On July 14th, talking about quite possibly the most formative year of my entire life.
The Summer of the Needless Things presents the Summer of the Bat.
Because I listened to you guys' 1989 episode, and I could have added like 12 more things to it, and it just made me realize how much happened.
Oh, it's insane.
And year.
We're doing a 1989 panel at DragonCon as well.
Yeah.
That is, this is my personal requirement, is anybody who is on the DragonCon panel, we can't use the same things we used for the podcast.
That's fair, yeah.
But 1989, that's not a problem.
Because even in retrospect, the other day was the 30th anniversary of Do the Right Thing.
Yes.
And while I was 13, I did not see Do the Right Thing. But as a film student, that movie is monumental to me. And that was 89. And so listening to you guys' thing, I was like, yep, that was 89. Oh, yeah, that was 89. And you guys didn't even hit on Last Crusade.
And that's the thing is I've peppered it in through a few of the 1989 things we've done throughout the year, and it just hasn't made it through any of the other stuff yet. But I will say this: if you come to DragonCon, I'll put you on the 1989 panel.
Well, we'll see what we can do about that. We'll see what we can do about that because because the other movie. Do you know what movie came out between Batman and Indiana Jones that summer? And it happened to come out basically around my birthday, and I'd already seen Indiana Jones, and Batman wasn't out yet.
I'm sure I've looked at it on the list because I've looked at the 1989 list a dozen times now.
Tom Lennon described it on How Does This Get Made as a 2-hour slow motion lynching of Tiny Lister. No Holds Barred.
Yeah. We did a commentary on No Holds Barred.
Yeah.
And it's a rotten piece of trash.
It's one of those movies. It's one of the films that made me realize, movies can be real bad,
embarrassingly bad, to the point that for years WWF tried to bury it until they ended up buying the rights to it in its entirety. There's a weird, interesting story to that.
Yeah, you're right. It is a rotten and like mean.
Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah.
All right, we
But,
got to wrap it up.
Happy birthday to me.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah. Chad, thank you so much for doing this last minute. I had to talk about Far From Home, and once we started chatting about it online, I was like, you know what, let's get on the Skype and do this.
The movie's awesome, so it's worth talking about. And if you're listening to this, you should have already seen it.
I hope so.
But if you haven't, and you've gotten through this, go see it anyway. It deserves your money.
It'll still be a rewarding experience. Yeah. Chad, I appreciate it, man.
All right, see you in a couple weeks.
We'll see you.
Bye.
Please go to Facebook, join the Needless Things Podcast Facebook group. Right now, you can vote on which movie we are going to watch this coming Monday night, as a matter of fact, for the July Needless Commentary. So jump on that, because it's only going to be up for a couple more days. Right now, UHF is in the lead with Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, which I really, really don't want to watch, in second place. It's kind of a distant second, but really we need some more UHF votes. Or Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Ghostbusters 2. There are all kinds of other options. I obviously, UHF is a beloved movie, and there's a good chance we would have watched it anyway sometime between now and the end of the year. But I didn't expect it to be the runaway favorite like it has been. And it's going to be a great commentary. Like I said, even if it didn't win, we'd probably end up doing it anyway. I can't believe the movie's 30 years old. I can't believe everything from 1989, including Batman, is 30 years old. And once again, I will tell you, please share, like, RSVP, tell your friends about Needless Things Presents The Summer of the Bat live at Atlanta Comic-Con on July 14th. I think I forgot to mention the time, but I did put over the event, so you should be able to figure it out. It's 1 p.m., July 14th, at the Georgia World Congress Center at Atlanta Comic-Con. It's going to be great. I'm very excited, and please come out, watch it. If you're there live, you'll get some you'll have the opportunity to get some free stuff brought back from the past, from the year 1989. But if you cannot make it out, it will, of course, be a future Needless Things podcast episode. You know why? Because I love you guys.
Thank you for listening to the Needless Things podcast. You're the best. You can find the show on iTunes, Stitcher, Downcast, or in the ears of a Trader Vic's employee. Love you. Mean it. Uh-huh.